Hello everyone, so since the last video I couldn't do much. I've created a video for my dungeon generation script. You can go check it out in my channel. I've also added an ultimate ability to my ninja character here and added a little bit of an ambience to my dungeon generation. The thing is, the ambience that I created is horrible. I just dimmed the lights a little bit. I added some random lights, imagining that they were some torches or something, some sort of maybe magical things, I don't know. I've also added some dust particles, but these particles are quite performance heavy and it doesn't really work out for the mobile. They caused my phone to heat up quite a bit. So to test the ult, I've added a button here, a basic button with a text that shows how much, what can we call this, ulti power we have, I guess. Ult amount is what I call it. I've just added the 100 points in right from the start to test the ult, but basically you would start with 0 points. So if I throw the weapon and I hit the ult button here, it pulls the enemies, it does a nice visual effect, and then comes back to the player. Each time you hit the enemy, you get 10 points of ult amount, and then you can use the ulti again by clicking this button. It pulls the enemies and it stays for 3 seconds and it pulls them with a force of 3 basically. I think I didn't have enemies in the last video, right? So yeah, these are just some placeholder enemies that I have. So if I use my ulti, it pulls all the enemies in. As you can see, kills some of them. I got enough points again because I've pulled a lot of enemies in. I can use it again. Of course, these amounts are all just placeholders basically. I will use different amounts. I will do some playtesting with my friends and maybe some viewers if there are any interested. The ulti script is right here. The most crucial part is right here, these two methods. This ultimate ability method is basically called by the button, this yellow button right here, and when we have 100 points and the weapon does exist to prevent any bugs, the rigid body of the weapon to be precise, then we can use the ultimate ability, which is a coroutine that pulls the enemies inwards. So we got a particle effect that starts playing. We reset the ult amount back to 0. We set the ulti active boolean true, and we zero out the weapon's velocity. We start the coroutine to pull the enemies, and we also add the ult's time to the weapon's catchback time. So if I throw the weapon and use the ultimate right before it is disappeared, it doesn't get bugged or it doesn't just disappear 1 second after using the ultimate ability. It just completes the ult and then comes back to the player whenever you use it. So while ulti active is true, we create an overlap sphere around the weapon, and for each collider that we hit, we check their tag. If they are an enemy, we add them into a list called enemies in range, and we also check if the enemy that we found is already in the list. If they are already in the list, we don't add them again, because otherwise you keep adding enemies into the list and the list goes larger and larger and larger, and every time an enemy is added to the list again, it's pulled with a greater force. So after a while the enemies just start teleporting onto the weapon once you click the ult, which is not what we want, obviously, and it also causes a lot of performance issues since the list is gigantic. And after that, for each enemy that we found that we added into the list, we get those enemies' now mesh agent speed, and we use a vector tree that move towards from the enemy's position to the weapon's position with the speed of the enemy times the ulti force that we set, and we of course use time delta time to fix the frame rate issues. And after the while loop ends, we immediately stop the coroutine so it doesn't just repeat the ulti over and over again. So while the ulti is active, we reduce the ulti time with time.delta time, and once we are at or lower than 0, we set the ulti active boolean to false, so we just basically stop the ult. We set the ulti time back to 3 or back to whatever it is supposed to be, and we clear the enemies in range list so there aren't enemies anymore, and we stop the particle system. We also call the catch weapon script from the character controls, so we just immediately catch the weapon basically. So that's it for now, guys. Thank you for watching, and hopefully next week I will finally have a better looking dungeon with some nice tiles, some torches and stuff. So see you on the next video.